When I found out my fiancée was only marrying me to destroy everything I had, that the one she'd always loved was her old flame, I gave up on her completely. Fine, let's see who plays the game better. The day before the wedding, my assistant looked at me, hesitating before finally speaking up. Mr. Hayes, Leo Rivera is back in the country. Should we have someone keep an eye on him? Everyone knew that my fiancée, Caroline Shaw, had once been desperately in love with Leo. A crazy, all-consuming kind of love. But how could a street-level tough guy ever be accepted by the Shaw family? In the end, her family had to intervene, sending Leo out of the country and cutting off all contact between them. For Leo to return the day before our wedding. His intentions were obvious. But my face remained a mask of calm. No need, I said flatly. But my assistant started to press, a worried edge in his voice. I frowned and shot him a cold glance. I know what I'm doing. He immediately shut his mouth. After he left, I stood up and walked to the massive floor-to-ceiling window. I watched the people and cars flowing through the streets below, a bustling river of life. A small smile touched my lips. The show is just getting started. The Shaws were old money, a cornerstone of New York City's elite. I was the city's acknowledged new titan of industry. The company I founded from scratch, Hayes Industries, had taken only 5 years to reach a scale that rivaled the long-established Shaw Corporation. Today was my wedding to the Shaw family's only daughter, Caroline Shaw. The venue was breathtakingly extravagant, buzzing with the murmur of the city's most powerful figures. The entire upper echelon of New York society was in attendance. But when the time came for the ceremony to begin, the bride was nowhere to be found. Guests exchanged uneasy glances, their whispers growing louder. I stood alone on the altar, silent. Finally, a call came through from Caroline. I answered immediately. Brandon, Leo's back. Something's happened with him. I'll explain everything later. Today's wedding is off. I promise I'll make it up to you. Then she hung up. Her words, broadcast through a microphone that had been left on, echoed through the silent hall. The room erupted. Everyone present knew who Leo Rivera was. Years ago, to win over the street punk, Caroline Shaw had bought out nearly every fireworks vendor in the city for a ridiculously public declaration of her love. Pushed by the tabloids, the story became legendary. At the time, every matriarch in New York's high society used it as a cautionary tale for their own daughters. The scandal had left Arthur Shaw, the family patriarch, utterly humiliated and furious. That was what led to him shipping Leo overseas and forbidding any contact between them. But now, for Caroline to call off her wedding for him was a public slap in the face to both the Hayes and Shaw families. My parents' faces were stone as they stared at Caroline's, demanding an explanation. My father is a tenured professor at Columbia. My mother is a high-powered attorney with 2 major law firms to her name. They are respected figures in this city. They weren't used to this kind of public humiliation. Caroline's mother frantically tried calling her daughter, but the calls went straight to voicemail. Arthur Shaw, Caroline's father, slammed his glass down, his body trembling with rage. A moment later, he swayed and collapsed to the floor. The scene descended into chaos. It was no secret that Arthur suffered from a heart condition and high blood pressure. His wife quickly gave him his nitro pills, and after a tense moment, he slowly came around. Still, she had to force a smile and apologize profusely to my parents. Ultimately, I had to announce the wedding was canceled. I told the guests their gifts would be returned, and that today's celebration was on me. My friends and Caroline's looked at me with pity. They, more than anyone, knew how I doted on her over the years. I had been at her beck and call, treating her like a queen. In that moment, I became the laughingstock of New York's elite. But I didn't care. Arthur's health had forced him into early retirement. Caroline had already taken the reins of the Shaw Corporation. For the new CEO of a major corporation to be making such disastrous, love-struck decisions was a fatal flaw. 3 days later, I received a call from Arthur, inviting me and my parents to a family dinner. I knew what it was, an apology tour. Though the wedding was off, the engagement wasn't officially broken. The business partnerships between Hayes Industries and Shaw Corp were still active. Someone had filmed the fiasco at the wedding, and the video had gone viral online. 4 days, both our families were caught in a media firestorm, even trending on Twitter. While I was the subject of mockery, the Shaws, as the guilty party, were getting savaged. They owed me. I arrived with my parents on time. The Shaw estate was as opulent as ever, but the atmosphere was heavy and suffocating. Arthur and his wife greeted us at the door, their smiles strained, their eyes shadowed with exhaustion and embarrassment. "Brandon, you're here. Please come in." Arthur's voice had a pleading quality. I nodded, leading my parents into the living room. A lavish dinner was prepared, the table laden with exquisite dishes. But no one had any appetite. Caroline arrived late, her presence making the tense room even colder. She wore a simple yellow floral dress, and though she had on light makeup, it couldn't hide the weariness in her face. Her eyes darted around, unable to meet mine, let alone my parents. "Caroline, where have you been?" "Come, sit down," her mother said, trying to smooth things over. My parents turned away, refusing to even look at her. Arthur's face turned purple with rage. He strode over and slapped her across the face. "You ungrateful child. Think about how Brandon has treated you all these years, how our families have supported this union. Is this how you repay them?" he boomed. "Apologize now." Caroline's face was grim, but she bowed deeply. "Mr. and Mrs. Hayes, Brandon, I'm sorry. My actions were reckless. The engagement is not off. I hope you can give me a little more time." When none of us responded, she straightened up and handed me a folder. "Brandon, I know I was wrong. I know your company has been very interested in the North Shore Luxury Development Project. As a token of my apology, I'm transferring it to you." The North Shore project was something Shaw Corp had spent years and immense resources to secure. As an old money corporation, Shaw Corp was beginning to show its age. New, agile competitors were constantly emerging. They desperately needed a major project like this to reverse their decline. For her to offer it as an apology was a significant sacrifice. I wasn't about to refuse a gift like that. At this level, love is the most volatile stock. Profit is the only god everyone worships. I took the contract. Her signature was already on it. Without hesitation, I added mine. My parents weren't interested in these business dealings. They cared about our family's reputation. Their faces remained grim. My own expression, however, softened. I pulled Caroline down to sit beside me. Seeing this, Arthur quickly raised his glass to my parents. "This was our family's fault. Caroline was foolish, and you were wronged. I'd like to make a toast to you as an apology." He then downed the entire glass of whiskey. I glanced at him. A man with high blood pressure drinking like that. He was asking for a death wish. Seeing that he'd gone this far, and that I'd signed a contract, my parents' expressions finally thawed. The atmosphere eased just a little. A few minutes into dinner, I excused myself to use the restroom. I pulled out a burner phone and sent a text to Leo Rivera. "Leo, Caroline doesn't really love you. You're just a toy to her. Once she's bored, she'll toss you aside, just like she did 5 years ago. Her running from the wedding was just a thrill because you were new again. Why else do you think she hasn't taken you to see her parents? She's at the Shaw estate right now with Brandon Hayes, planning the new wedding date. If you don't believe me, come and see for yourself." The message was full of holes, but I knew Leo would take the bait. Right now, he trusted me, the anonymous source, implicitly. After all, I was the one who told him Caroline was getting married. I was the one who bought his plane ticket back. No one knew what Leo had been through overseas better than I did. He had suffered immensely these past few years, often cold and hungry. Eventually, he'd been forced into a relationship with a wealthy, older woman who was both obese and abusive. He might have thought his life was getting better, but he had merely fallen into a different kind of hell. The woman had a severe violent streak, beating him for the slightest perceived offense. His life had been worse than a dog's. If I hadn't secretly helped him return, he might have died there. Being with Caroline was his only ticket out of hell and into paradise. He would cling to that hope, no matter how slim, and never let go. My devotion to Caroline had once been the envy of everyone around us. Until one day, her best friend, Jenna Reed, called me, saying Caroline was drunk and needed me to pick her up. I arrived at the private room and was about to open the door when I heard them talking about me. "Caroline, be honest. Who do you love more, Brandon Hayes or Leo Rivera?" Caroline's voice turned sharp. "Brandon? What is he? He's just a tool, a lapdog. How could he possibly compare to Leo? The only one I've ever loved is Leo." "Then why are you marrying Brandon?" Because I don't have the power to be with Leo right now. I know where he is, and if I go to him now, it'll only bring him harm. My father's health has been failing. He'll only hand over the company to me if I agree to marry Brandon. My dad only sent Leo away because he saw potential in Brandon. I hate my father. I hate Brandon. Once I have control of Shaw Corp, I'll leverage Brandon's obsession with me to swallow Hayes Industries whole. Then we'll see who dares to stop me from being with Leo. If she hadn't been drunk, if Jenna hadn't been her most trusted confidant, and if I hadn't happened to be there, I would have remained in the dark forever. My heart sank, piece by piece. When I looked up again, my eyes were cold and ruthless. Leo didn't disappoint. Halfway through dinner, he stormed in, his face a mask of fury. "Leo, what are you doing here?" Caroline stammered, panicking. When Leo saw me, he exploded. He pointed at me, then whirled on Caroline. "You told me you only loved me. What is he doing here? You're still going to marry him, aren't you?" Caroline's face went white. She clearly hadn't expected him to show up. Her lips trembled as she tried to form an explanation, but Leo's rage was a wildfire, giving her no chance to speak. "Leo, calm down," she pleaded, reaching for his arm. "Calm down. How am I supposed to calm down?" He shoved her hand away. "You lied to me. You've been lying this whole time. You say you love me, but here you are, planning your future with him. What am I to you, Caroline?" Her face grew even paler. "Leo, it's not what you think. Not what I think. Then what is it? Tell me." Arthur Shaw was apoplectic. He slammed his hand on the table and rose to his feet. "Who the hell do you think you are, causing a scene in my house?" he roared. "Security, get him out of here." Two of the family's bodyguards moved in to grab Leo, but he was consumed by a reckless fury. He broke free and rushed toward Caroline, seizing her by the wrist. "Caroline, you owe me an answer. Today, who do you choose?" His eyes were wild with desperation. Caroline was silent. Leo stared at her, then let out a bitter laugh. He suddenly pulled a pocket knife from his belt and pressed the blade to his own neck. His voice was a low, hoarse whisper. "Caroline, I love you more than life itself. I would die for you. If you don't want me, then what's the point of living?" Caroline finally broke. "Leo, you know my heart has always been yours. I choose you. I choose you," she cried, her voice trembling. "Please put the knife down. I'll go with you, okay?" Seeing the blade loosen slightly, she rushed to him, ignoring the shocked expressions of both our parents. "I'm sorry, Caroline," Leo sobbed. "I'm just so in love with you, I didn't know what else to do. I know your parents might not approve of me, but I'll work hard to prove myself to them, I promise." Tears streamed down his face. Caroline frantically wiped them away. "I believe you, Leo. You'll be every bit as successful as Brandon. I know it. I'll do everything I can to help you." My father's face was a thundercloud. My mother just looked disappointed. They knew how deeply I had loved Caroline, but seeing my calm expression, they both let out a quiet sigh of relief. Arthur Shaw looked like he was about to have a stroke. His face was beet red as he pointed a shaking finger at his daughter. "You ungrateful wretch. Are you trying to kill me?" he screamed. "This piece of trash. If you won't get rid of him, I will." At that, Caroline's expression turned to ice. She stared back at her father, her eyes filled with a chilling coldness. "Father, I've already lost him once. I won't lose him again. If you can turn a blind eye to this, I will continue to be a good daughter to you, and I will take care of you in your old age. You've already transferred your shares to me. I'm not the little girl you could control 5 years ago. From now on, I make my own decisions." Her words stunned everyone in the room. My God, I thought love really does make you stupid. Without another glance at anyone, she took Leo's hand and walked out. As he left, Leo shot me a triumphant smirk over his shoulder. Moments after they were gone, a loud thud echoed through the room. Arthur Shaw had collapsed backward, his body convulsing. His wife was terrified, falling to her knees beside him, wailing. The bodyguards rushed him to the car and sped to the hospital. Arthur was wheeled into the emergency room for immediate treatment. His wife called Caroline over and over, but the phone just rang. She begged me to try. My calls went unanswered as well. "Isin a single text. Caroline, your father is in critical condition at the hospital. Get here now." A moment later, she replied, "Brandon, I know you're upset about what happened. You don't have to make up lies to get me to come back. Don't worry, Our engagement is still on. I just need to calm Leo down. I'll call you tomorrow." Because they had gotten him to the hospital in time, Arthur survived. The doctor said he'd had a high-pressure-induced cerebral hemorrhage. His life was saved, but he was paralyzed. He would spend the rest of his days in a bed. After leaving the hospital, I drove my parents home. Their moods were dark. "Brandon," my mother began, hesitating. "I know how much you've always loved Caroline, but these past few days, your father and I have seen her true colors. We discussed it at the hospital. We will not accept her as our daughter-in-law. She doesn't deserve you." I managed a small smile. "I know. Don't worry. I'm not going to marry her. I had never intended to, but I couldn't tell them that. From my school days to building my own company, I had never given them a reason to worry. In their eyes, I was the sensible, responsible son. I didn't want them to see the darkness I kept hidden." The next day, Caroline called. She sounded exhausted, like she hadn't slept. "Brandon, we need to talk," she said, her voice low and hoarse. Jenna Reed, lying in my arms, traced circles on my chest. I gave her a look to be still. I composed myself, feigning anger. "Caroline, what is there to talk about? You chose Leo? Twice. What do you take me for? What do you take my family's reputation for?" She was silent for a moment. "Brandon, I know I hurt you," she said, her voice laced with guilt. "But I didn't have a choice. Leo, he can't live without me. Just give me 1 year. I'll handle things with him. After 1 year, I'll be your wife. I promise. I'll make it up to you during this time." So, she wanted love and money. What a brilliant calculation. My performance over the years must have been too convincing. She truly believed I loved her so desperately that I would tolerate anything. She had no idea that I was the furthest thing from a lovesick fool. And she certainly wasn't the only woman in the world. But it wasn't time to show my hand just yet. My tone softened, laced with feigned despair. "Caroline, you know how much I love you. Do you have any idea what these last few days have been like for me? The thought of you with him. It drives me crazy, and yet I have to pretend like nothing happened. Did you ever once think about how I feel?" I had, admittedly, been very good to her over the years. My world had revolved around her. The gifts I'd given her could fill a small warehouse. There was a pause on the other end. "I'm sorry," she whispered. I let the silence hang for a moment before speaking. "Fine, Caroline. I can agree to wait 1 more year. But Hayes Industries is also bidding on the $15 billion Olsen contract. You have to give it to me." Her breathing hitched. "Impossible," she snapped back without a second thought. "I already gave you the North Shore project as an apology. The Olsen contract. Shaw Corp has to win it." Her refusal was expected. Shaw Corp was in a downward spiral. They had poured everything into 2 major plays, the North Shore development and the Olsen contract. She had already given me one. She would never give up the other. To do so would plunge the entire company into crisis. Sensing my silence, she spoke again, her voice softer. "Brandon, I really can't give you the Olsen project. Even if I agreed, the board would never approve it. How about this? In our upcoming joint ventures, I'll give you a larger share of the profits." I knew when to back off. "Fine, we'll do it that way." After hanging up, Jenna looked up at me, a pout on her face. "Mr. Hayes, are you really going to marry her in a year?" I looked down at her. "Do you think I'm a fool?" She shook her head. "You built your company into a titan in just 5 years, big enough to make old money firms nervous. If you're a fool, then there are no smart men left in the world." I playfully pinched her nose. "Exactly. The title of Mrs. Hayes will not be hers." Before she could say more, I silenced her with a kiss. After our intense negotiation, a satisfied Jenna pulled a thick file from her bag and handed it to me with a triumphant grin. "Mr. Hayes, everything you wanted is right here." I took it, my eyes widening as I flipped through the pages. This woman was full of surprises. Jenna wasn't just Caroline's best friend. She was also her executive assistant. These past few days, with Caroline completely distracted by Leo, Jenna had been managing most of the corporation's affairs. It was no wonder she had access to such confidential documents. Shaw Corp had worked with Olsen several times before. They knew each other inside and out. So, while the $15 billion contract was technically an open bid, no one thought they could realistically compete with the Shaws. But that was about to change. I now held all their cards. Let's see how they play this hand. 7. A few days later, my assistant reported in. "Mr. Hayes, Caroline Shaw registered a new company for Leo Rivera. It's called Cosmos Incorporated. Cosmos, to compete with my Hayes Industries. Cute. Leo was a lost cause. I never considered him a threat. Hire a few of our sharpest people, I instructed. Have them apply for jobs there. A year passed quickly. Hayes Industries successfully secured both the $15 billion Olson contract and the North Shore Development Project. Combined with the favorable terms Shaw Corp kept giving us, my company's scale exploded. We became the undisputed leader in New York's corporate landscape. Shaw Corp was no longer in our league. Of course, when I won the Olson contract, Caroline stormed into my office and screamed at me. I had her unceremoniously thrown out. Meanwhile, Shaw Corp took a massive hit, its performance plummeting. The company was now teetering on the verge of collapse. Caroline herself was partly to blame. Even as her family's empire crumbled, the lovesick fool kept funneling money into Leo's Cosmos Inc. Her brilliant move only accelerated the decay. I sat in my office, looking out at the city skyline. It's time to end this, I murmured. I called to my assistant. Effective immediately, begin selling off all our shares of Shaw Corp stock. Simultaneously, all divisions and subsidiaries of Hayes Industries will cease all cooperation with Shaw Corp. Their credit line is shot, and their payments to us are overdue. File a lawsuit. Not long after my assistant left, I got a call from Leo. He wanted to meet. I thought about it for a second, then accepted. 8. In a quiet hotel bar downtown, I watched Leo approach, a smirk playing on my lips. He was dripping with new money, a gaudy display of someone spoiled rotten by Caroline. Mr. Rivera, you're a busy man. To what do I owe the pleasure? Leo's expression was pure scorn. Hayes, I've been wanting to do this for a while. I just didn't have the standing before. But things are different now. I know your company was only worth about $100 million after its first year. But my company, Cosmos, hit a valuation of $500 million in just 1 year. I've proven myself. I, Leo Rivera, am better than you, Brandon Hayes. I watched his pathetic, triumphant display and had to stifle a laugh. Oh, is that right? You came all this way just for my validation? His face twitched, clearly not expecting such a dismissive response. His fragile ego flared into anger. My success is 5 times what yours was at this stage. You must be furious, right? And I'll tell you something else. Caroline will only ever love me. What do you have to be so proud of? You can't compare to me. I lifted my teacup, took a slow sip, and smiled. He was literally offering his face up for me to slap. I was happy to oblige. Leo, Shaw Corp has funneled nearly $1 billion into your company over the past year. Your current valuation is $500 million. That's some impressive business acumen. His face fell. I didn't give him a chance to respond. Who gave you the nerve to come here and provoke me? Leo? Was it Caroline? Or was it that old woman you were with overseas? Leo froze, his face paling as if he'd seen a ghost. You? What are you talking about? I don't understand. I have to go. He scrambled to get up, desperate to flee. Did I say you could leave? I asked, my voice dangerously quiet. He froze in place. I continued to drink my tea leisurely. Leo, think about it. Why would a total stranger help rescue you from that old woman? Why would they arrange for you to come back to Caroline? The blood drained from his face. Only 2 people knew about that. Himself and the person who had helped him. He stared at me for a long moment, his eyes wide with dawning horror. It was you. You brought me back, why? I looked up, a flicker of something almost like pity in my eyes. You were just a pawn in my game. Your return was necessary to distract Caroline, to consistently drag down her judgment. Shaw Corp is about to fall, Leo, and you played a starring role in its demise. He looked as though he'd been struck by lightning, his expression a mixture of disbelief and fury. He stammered. You were using me from the very beginning. You loved Caroline so much, yet you were plotting against her this whole time. I scoffed. You're worried about Caroline? You should be worried about yourself. Did your assistant recently bring you a few overseas investment opportunities? Did you sink a few $100 million into them? His face turned ashen. What do you mean? Still doesn't get it. What an idiot. Why don't you try calling your assistant? I watched quietly as he frantically made the call, watched his composure crack, watched him descend into madness. In that instant, he understood everything. He screamed that I was a demon, the devil himself. He lunged at me. only to be tackled and restrained by the bodyguard standing behind me. They dragged him out like a feral dog. I didn't have to lift a finger to deal with him. Someone else hated him far more than I did. 9. I checked the time. By now, the old woman from overseas had likely already confronted Caroline. Sure enough, that evening, my phone rang. It was her. The arrogant, cold tone was gone, replaced by choked sobs. "Brandon, I was wrong. Leo is a bastard. He lied to me. He told me he'd only ever loved me, that he'd never been with another woman overseas, but he was married to some old, fat woman. Brandon, I was so wrong. We agreed, after a year, we'd get married. You won't abandon me, will you?" Her voice grew frantic when I didn't respond. "Don't worry. I'm completely done with Leo. I had his legs broken. I'll never do anything to hurt you again. Brandon, even though I betrayed you, you have to admit, you've taken so many projects from us this year. You're the reason Shaw Corp is in this mess, aren't you? I won't blame you for that. We can call it even." "Okay." She was weeping hysterically by the end. I listened patiently, then let out a cold laugh. "Caroline, it's a little late for apologies, don't you think?" The great Caroline Shaw, CEO of Shaw Corp, being the other woman for some street punk. It won't be long before that story is all over New York. Do you really think I would marry a woman with a ruined reputation? Your family might not care about its name, but the Hayes family does. Her tone changed instantly, turning sharp and crazed. "So Leo was right. This was all your plan. You knew about him and that woman. You helped him come back. You're the one who destroyed me." She was screaming now. "Why, Brandon? Why? You love me so much. You promised you'd love me and cherish me forever. Why would you destroy me with your own hands?" I stared out into the night, my expression unreadable. "Yes, I loved you so much," I said, my voice dripping with sarcasm. "And how did you repay me? Who was it that said the only person they loved was Leo, and that marrying me was just a way to take everything I had? You started this fire, Caroline. Don't blame me for letting it burn. You brought all of this on yourself." Her breathing grew ragged on the other end of the line. Her voice panicked. "Brandon, no, that's not right. You must have misunderstood. I would never do that to you." Still acting, even now, I had no more time to waste on her. I hung up. The following weeks were chaos for Shaw Corp. They were under siege from all sides. Their stock price plummeted into an abyss. My lawsuit triggered a domino effect. News that their credit lines were frozen leaked to the press. The banks issued public notices about their defaulted loans. It was an avalanche. Suppliers stormed their headquarters demanding payment. A media circus that every news outlet covered. Former allies, smelling blood in the water, severed ties, and canceled contracts. And the enemy Shaw Corp had made over decades in business. They were all too happy to kick the company while it was down. The once mighty Shaw Corporation collapsed. Bankruptcy was inevitable. Caroline called me relentlessly during this time. I ignored every call. Now that the end game was here, I felt no pity. But she found me. She showed up at my private villa. And with her was her dear best friend and assistant, Jenna Reed. The Caroline I saw now was a ghost of her former self, haggard and exhausted. The moment she saw me, all her pride vanished. She fell on her knees. "Brandon, I was wrong. I'm so sorry. Please, save Shaw Corp. It's finished. You're the only one who can help me now." She crawled forward, grabbing the leg of my pants, tears streaming down her face, her eyes pleading. I smiled down at her, hating me with every fiber of her being, yet forced to beg me like a dog. It must have been torture. "I'll be good to you from now on, I promise. Please, just give me one more chance. I have nothing left. I only have you." My smile faded. I looked at the beautiful, broken woman before me, and all I felt was ice. The love was long gone. "Caroline, you would never have bowed your head, never have kneeled and begged, if you weren't backed into a corner. For Leo, you had love. For me, you only ever had ambition." She shook her head violently. "No, Brandon. I was just deceived by him. I realize now. The one I've loved all along was you." I kicked her away. "Caroline," I said, my voice devoid of all emotion, "I orchestrated the fall of Shaw Corp. Do you really think I'm going to save it? I won't save the company, and I won't save you. From the very beginning, my goal was to destroy your entire family." She stared at me, utterly stunned. Even Jenna was speechless, a chill creeping up her spine. After a long moment, Caroline's shock curdled into rage. Why? She shrieked. Because I loved Leo? You would destroy my whole family for that. Was your love for me all a lie? I looked toward the horizon, my thoughts drifting back in time. It's no secret I was adopted by the Hayes family, I said calmly. But has everyone forgotten my original name? Seeing their blank, confused faces, I continued. My birth name was Lucas Kane, of the Kane family, here in New York. The color drained from their faces. They looked at me as if they were seeing a ghost. Impossible, Caroline screamed. You can't be Lucas Kane. He's dead. He died years ago. Their eyes were now filled with terror. Arthur Shaw was on his deathbed. It was only right that I pay him a visit. As I left, I glanced back at Caroline, who was slumped on the floor in a daze. I felt nothing. By the way, Caroline, your best friend Jenna played no small part in your company's bankruptcy. The Olson contract and every other project I took from you this year. It was all thanks to her help. Without her, even a wounded giant like Shaw Corp wouldn't have fallen so quickly. I turned and walked away without looking back. Jenna shrieked and tried to lunge at me, but my bodyguards held her back easily. Lucas, shut up. You tricked me. You're a monster. You're the devil. You'll burn in hell. I'll haunt you forever. Caroline slowly lifted her head, her gaze locking onto Jenna with a look of pure, cold murder. As I stepped out of the villa, I heard Caroline's icy voice, followed by Jenna's hysterical screams. The sounds hung in the air, a final, brutal severing of the past from the present. But I felt nothing at all. It was all just noise in the distance, and it had nothing to do with me. At the hospital, I sat by Arthur Shaw's bedside. He'd been paralyzed for a year, unable to speak, but his mind was still sharp. When I told him the whole truth, his eyes burned with a rage so intense. He looked like he wanted to crawl out of his bed and tear me apart with his teeth. I met his gaze without a shred of pity. I just watched him struggle, drowning in his own helplessness. I knew in that moment he was drowning in regret. Regret that he hadn't killed me when he had the chance, allowing me to make his entire family pay for the sins against mine. His breathing grew ragged, the veins in his eyes bursting. He died right there in front of me, choked by his own rage, his eyes wide open in a permanent state of horror. I knew about his poor health and his violent temper. Leo's return, Caroline canceling the wedding, the scene Leo caused at their home. It was all orchestrated by me. The goal was always to provoke Arthur, to trigger the inevitable. My name is Brandon Hayes, but I was born Lucas Kane. Arthur Shaw and my father, Edward Kane, were the closest of friends. 20 years ago, over drinks, Arthur tricked my father into signing a $500 million partnership agreement. It was a poison pill contract. Failure to meet impossible targets within a tight deadline would trigger a penalty of 10 times the investment. Just like that, with a single sheet of paper, our family's company was bankrupted. Our company, our homes, our cars, everything was liquidated, and we were still left with over $3 billion in debt. That monster, Arthur Shaw, hounded us relentlessly for the money. In the end, he drove my parents to their deaths. I was 6 years old. I was young, but I remember everything from that year. Every detail is burned into my memory. Afterward, Arthur brought me to the Shaw estate. Not out of charity. He presented me to his 7-year-old daughter, Caroline, as a gift. A pet. That was the beginning of my nightmare. Caroline's greatest pleasure was inventing new ways to torture me. And right by her side was her best friend, Jenna Reed. They put a dog collar around my neck and kept me on a leash. Whenever they were displeased, they would whip me, leaving my body covered in bloody welts. I ate my food off the floor and slept in a doghouse. For an entire year, they tormented me, until one day they took me to the reservoir in Pelham Bay Park, and together they pushed me in. I thrashed in the water, desperate for air. On the shore, they laughed hysterically. One of their bodyguards started to move to help me, but they ordered him to stop. The icy water filled my lungs. The world started to go dark. The last thing I heard was their piercing laughter. That was the moment I understood true despair and hatred. As I lost consciousness, I saw them turn and walk away with their bodyguard. Their new pet had lost its novelty, so they discarded it like trash. I thought I was going to die, but a homeless man pulled me from the water. A year later, he died of pneumonia. Some kind soul took me to an orphanage. I was there for a year. When Mr. and Mrs. Hayes came to the orphanage looking to adopt, I knew my chance had come. Using a worn-out piano someone had donated, I played Fur Elise. The music, combined with the solemn, dignified air I had taught myself to project, captured their attention. They adopted me. They gave me the warmth of a family I craved and the elite education I needed. They made me who I am today. They gave me the power to get close to the Shaws again. I tormented Caroline and Jenna for a month, then I grew bored. I simply returned the favor, using every method on them that they had once used on me. They spent their days on their knees, weeping and begging for forgiveness. After Shaw Corp's bankruptcy, Hayes Industries continued to grow, becoming a powerhouse not just domestically, but with new operations in Africa and Southeast Asia. I've always believed in fairness. I sent one of them to our new venture in Africa and the other to Southeast Asia. They loathe each other now. It's better to keep them apart. As for Leo, I returned him to his legal wife. The old woman overseas said something about wanting to enforce some family discipline. I've always been one to help people fulfill their desires. Consider it my good deed for the decade.